everybody. Welcome back to the Access Blockbusters Pod. It is so good to be back. Well, I should say, to be back. If you guys have been following the channel, let me start over. This is already getting too complicated for probably everybody and for myself included. But, if you've been following the channel kind of loosely, it may not have seemed like there was much of a difference. Obviously, I wasn't talking about the most current movies and shows coming out, which we will be talking about in this episode of the Access Blockbusters Pod. So thank you so much for joining. But I've been just kind of, I've been posting some videos that I've had ready for quite a while now. I've been super excited to share with you guys some little different kind of content coming out. I think the recent video was the Hobbit video. I don't talk about, Hobbit or Lord of the Rings, obviously, that much. Probably will at some point, again, because of the Amazon Prime Lord of the Rings series, which I think looks pretty good, but, I've heard other things. I've heard otherwise. But yeah, I've just been taking a little bit of a breather. Haven't had the time to record many new videos and talk about the things that I want to talk about, but I did have a chance this week to kind of sit down and sit here and talk with you guys about all things recently. And I believe the last time I talked with you guys in a podcast episode or in a current video was I think Spider-Man No Way Home, or maybe ranking the 2021 MCU movies and shows. So last December. And since then, we've had some really awesome things going on. So today is sort of a catch-up episode, and I'm hoping to do these once in a while I kind of, kind of figure out what the channel is going to be over the next summer, and then heading into 2023 and all that sort of stuff. But anyways, all that aside, guys, I just want to say really quickly, huge thank you. Huge shout out to all of you guys who are continuing to support this channel. 600 and I believe 68 subscribers at the last time I checked. That is just incredible. That it's beyond words. Thank you. Thank you so much. I really, the only one goal, tangible goal, other than just to enjoy making these videos and to, talk about all the things that I really like talking about with movies and shows. The only other real tangible goal is just to someday hit 1,000 subscribers. At a certain point in this channel's life, I thought, oh, that's going to be so easy. How naive I was. Obviously, that was more towards the beginning. And then at a certain point, maybe last year, it was kind of like, yeah, I don't know if it's going to happen. But just seeing the support that's been coming out lately, especially surrounding videos like ranking literally every single MCU character, which I'm hoping to make a sequel to now that there have been literally, I think, 9 or 10 new movies and shows worth of characters to rank, so that'll be fun. And also the Beginner's Guide to the MCU. I actually, I couldn't believe how well that video has been connecting with people. It really, I get comments almost every week, every day, just with people saying, thank you so much, I've been looking for a video like this, and that's really what, makes me happy, is being able to help people as they explore the MCU. And, maybe I'll do one for Star Wars, maybe, I don't know, the Beginner's Guide to Star Wars, Beginner's Guide to DC. But anyways, I just, I'm really happy with all of that. And yeah, part 2 is up. Part 2 was released a bit ago. And so if you have any friends who are, looking at Moon Knight and going, what the heck is this? Part 1 and part 2 up on the channel, feel free to send them towards those videos, and all that sort of stuff. But anyways, all of that aside, all of that shameless self-promotion aside, we are here. It is an episode of the Access Blockbusters Pod. So sit back and relax this, for about half an hour to an hour or so. We're just going to be talking about all things movies and shows and things that have come out. So the first couple things that I wanted to talk about today were some trailers that have come out in the past couple weeks. And just briefly, I wanted to touch upon them before we move on to, as you've read the title, The Batman and Moon Knight speculation, Moon Knight predictions, Doctor Strange predictions maybe, and Boba Fett as well. We'll be talking about Boba Fett. I have a lot of thoughts about the book of Boba Fett. That is a tongue twister, by the way. But anyways, but let's talk about the 3 trailers that have released in the past 3 months. The 3 big trailers, I would add. And by the way, while we're on the topic of trailers, Thor: Love and Thunder is pretty close. It's technically about 3.5 months away still. But a first trailer I think might be dropping imminently. Actually, I would have thought this week, maybe even next week. But before the end of March, I do believe we'll be getting a Thor: Love and Thunder trailer. So I think that'll be exciting. That'll be something to look forward to. But anyways, the first big trailer that I wanted to talk about was obviously Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. The second and I'm presuming final big trailer before the movie comes out in just over a month. Let's not bury the lead. Let's talk about Patrick Stewart. Let's talk about the Illuminati. Not that Illuminati, the Marvel Illuminati, which I have to imagine they're going to rebrand it somehow. Because just calling it the Illuminati obviously has other associations at this point, so I'm not entirely sure what they're going to do with that. That'll be up to Marvel. They'll figure it out. I'm sure they'll figure it out. But yeah. So when I was watching that trailer on Super Bowl Sunday, I was like, this is a fantastic trailer. We'll kind of go through a couple of the major beats later on, and then I see him going through what looks to me like a TVA-esque sort of building or room. And I know that, it's not exactly the TVA. I know the TVA was a sham by Kang the Conqueror and He Who Must Not Be Named. No, that's a different franchise. He Who Remains. But I just couldn't help but get, little TVA vibes, and that was cool. And I was like, okay, he's being captured. That's pretty interesting. Where's he going? And he gets put in front of this council, and I'm like, okay. And then I hear the voice, and just like every single trailer reaction, my jaw just dropped, and I said, what? I literally audibly just sat there, and for the rest of the trailer, I was trying to process what was going on, but the implications, right? Patrick Stewart is back as Charles Xavier. Now, if you know me, you would know that, to be quite honest with you, I get the argument that, oh, well, if they put this in the trailer, then how much more are they going to have in the movie? Fine. Great, fine. But I would have preferred not to have this in the trailer at all. Just straight up. I think that I don't know. Even though we all sort of knew, I would have just preferred to have not had this in the trailer. And I know we heard one line. And I know we saw a silhouette of the back of his head. But I don't know. I wish that movies kind of kept all of their secrets for the movie itself. I think Avengers Endgame is just such a good example of how to do a marketing campaign, because yes, you need those, Avengers Endgame had its own hype going forward, and I respect that. And so it didn't really need to show anything, but it didn't show anything. And I think people would have been just as excited for the cool visuals of Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness without the Professor X reveal. I see how they probably grabbed a few extra, demographics of people who were kind of on the fence, and they were like, demographics meaning, like viewers, like fringe viewers, like people who aren't as interested in the MCU, people who just don't care about the MCU, but who like the X-Men, those kinds of demographics. And they were like, oh, wait, it's X-Men. But look, at the end of the day, I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm just salty. But I would have preferred not to see that in the trailer. But it's in the trailer, and obviously, what that means is, yes, that argument holds true. If they put Professor X in the trailer, and Kevin Feige doesn't just do that kind of thing, because I know that trailers are made by other trailer companies, but I'm sure that Kevin Feige has some sort of final say on what goes in the trailer. It would be absolutely crazy if he didn't. And I'm sure he was like, well, this might get people excited because we have a lot more coming. And, there were hints of sort of a superior Iron Man or Reed Richards, or you could see a Monica Rambeau Captain Marvel. This movie is going to be insane. And I, for what it's worth, I recently just rewatched Spider-Man No Way Home as it came out on video and digital and all that sort of stuff. And what I had always said before Spider-Man No Way Home is, with all of the hype of the multiverse and all of the hype of the Tobey and Andrew appearances and the villains Doc Ock and Green Goblin, people seem to kind of forget that it's still a movie, and it needs to be a good movie. Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker wasn't a better movie just because Lando Calrissian was in it for about 5 minutes. You know what I mean? And thankfully, as I was rewatching the movie, I just reaffirmed to me that yes, cameos and multiverse villains and stuff, but it was a great movie. It's just a great movie in my eyes. And that's what I need Doctor Strange 2 to be. I don't care who shows up or when. It's going to be exciting, of course. But the way that I watched Spider-Man No Way Home integrate the villains and the heroes into the story, especially that moment on top of the school, on the roof of the school, where they're talking about with great power comes great responsibility. That's integral to the story. I don't want Charles Xavier just to show up and be like, "Yo, I'm here. What's up?" and then he dies again or something. It just, and then Reed Richards shows up for 5 seconds and he's like, "Oh, see you in my next movie, and Ant-Man 3 or whatever." Um I just hope that's not what happens. And luckily, on a more positive note, it looks like that's where it's going because the trailer looks insane. The trailer looks like it has all the makings of just a fantastic, wild, nightmarish, horror-esque movie. And that's something obviously the MCU hasn't explored yet. I love the last shot of this weird zombified, just ghoulish, strange. It just shows, Sam Raimi's touch with this kind of thing. It's just fantastic. So yeah, I mean, there were a bunch of other shots we can go through, like the Ultron bots. Those are really interesting. Rachel McAdams is back. Looks like she has a larger role, as she said in a recent interview. But I'm just so excited. I really don't want to speculate that much more because I just want to see it in the theater come May. So there is that. The second trailer that I wanted to discuss really briefly before we get to the big third trailer is Miss Marvel. I'm not going to talk about Miss Marvel that long in terms of the podcast length, but I watched it. Came out last week, and it looks fun. It didn't quite have that same charm as the Hawkeye trailer did for me, because I mean, people can argue, oh, it's kind of the same as Hawkeye, just a sort of fun, cheesy sort of Marvel adventure. I still think the Hawkeye trailer, at the very least, had a little bit more just warmth to it. But I love the message that they're going for here of this sort of teenage Pakistani girl from Jersey City who's like, yeah, it's like I look at myself and wearing the Captain Marvel costume and I go, it's really not people like me who save the world though. And I love that sort of empowering message, not just for Pakistani people or people who live in Jersey or young people or women, of course all of those groups as well, but just anybody who feels like they're just ordinary and who really don't feel like they're that special, that this empowering message of they still amount to something. I feel like that's where the show is going to go, at least just from the trailer, obviously not having seen the episode, and it's great representation obviously, so I really applaud Marvel for that as well. But yeah, no, it's great to see that kind of heart, because again, it's the temptation is that this is just going to be some sort of cheesy Disney Channel like thought bubbles and stuff kind of show, but that was just sort of the first half of the trailer, and I wouldn't be that mad if it happened every once in a while, half the show, I don't know, but it looks fun. One of the complaints I've heard about the Disney Plus shows, for Marvel at least though, and I think it's a double-edged sword, because obviously not every MCU fan has Disney Plus, and they just go and watch the movie, so they probably saw Black Widow, Shang-Chi, Eternals, Spider-Man No Way Home, and one of the complaints that I've heard about most of these MCU shows is that they just give these characters new costumes by the end, which is honestly is not that far off. You got your Wanda, Scarlet Witch, you got Sam Wilson, Captain America. Loki's getting a season 2, so I guess that's not really the case with that show. Hawkeye, they got new costumes. Miss Marvel's getting that costume. I'm sure Moon Knight and She-Hulk will get their iconic costumes. Obviously, we saw Moon Knight in the trailers. But yeah, it's like Kevin Feige has to go. There are people who are not going to know who these characters are because they don't have Disney Plus, and they're going to watch the movies and they're going to see the Marvels, which obviously will make over $500 million at least. Because every single MCU movie makes over $500 million at least. So there's that. And they're going to see, Iman Vellani dressed up as Miss Marvel, and they're going to go, oh, well, what's the deal? And, well, she got a costume, and she exists in this world, and, let's go on this fun adventure. They're going to see Scarlet Witch and Doctor Strange 2 and go, oh, well, the last time I saw her, she was in Endgame, or, Infinity War or whatever, and now she has a new costume, and she's powerful, but, they haven't seen WandaVision at least. Although Doctor Strange 2 seems to be referring to Westview, so maybe that's different. But, yeah, I don't know that this show is going to be that consequential in terms of just MCU. It's going to be introducing, Kamala Khan. That's going to get me so tripped up. Just hearing Kamala Harris and then Kamala Khan. That's just going to get me so tripped up. But anyways, Kamala Khan, and then, introducing her into the Marvels, just like Scarlet Witch into Doctor Strange 2, just like Captain America into his own movie, just like I'm sure Haley Steinfeld into Young Avengers, and Loki probably in Doctor Strange 2. It's this sort of introducing phase that Disney Plus has sort of been introducing us to new iterations of characters that we've already known, and also introducing us to new characters altogether with Moon Knight that we'll talk about in just a little bit. So, but it looks like a fun trailer. I love the Weeknd song, "Blinded by the Lights." It's a great choice for the show, or for the trailer. Excuse me, just because of all the high powered cosmic energy that's going on, and I thought it was a fun trailer, so I can't complain. But the third trailer that I wanted to talk about very briefly is, of course, Obi-Wan Kenobi. Perfect trailer. Perfect trailer. I don't know. Amazing trailer. Absolutely. Duel of Fates. 90% of it. Absolutely. Do I want another trailer? No. This is it. I don't want another trailer. It's not a perfect trailer for a couple of reasons that I'll go through briefly before I rave about it. Number one, as I'm sure you've seen with all the memes going around, the Inquisitor, or the Grand Inquisitor, with all of the advancements they've made with CGI and prosthetics, I'm sure they found a really great actor. I forget it, Rupert somebody is going to be playing the Grand Inquisitor, and I'm sure he's a fantastic actor. They picked a great actor. He doesn't look like the Grand Inquisitor, and I'm sure you've seen all the memes comparing him to the ones on Utapau in Revenge of the Sith, that you couldn't have just... this is so minor, because obviously for me visuals don't ever make or break a movie. They help or they hurt, but they don't make or break. And I'm sure I'm gonna get used to seeing him like this. I even think Rosario Dawson's Ahsoka doesn't look super convincing in live action, to be quite honest. Sometimes at least. Sometimes it looks like Rosario Dawson wearing a headpiece and whatever. But yeah, I don't know. And also even the guy with the Inquisitor with the weird hat thing doesn't look that convincing to me either. So that wasn't great for me, to be quite honest, even the first time I saw the trailer. And the other thing about this trailer that I realized about the show in general, and this isn't really a negative necessarily. It could be a negative, it could be a positive. What I realized though is that this show has essentially zero stakes, and that will lead me into a different part of this discussion that I wanted to get to later. But this show will not have stakes, and what I mean by that is Obi-Wan lives, Darth Vader lives, Grand Inquisitor and Hat Inquisitor live to be in Rebels. Uncle Owen lives. The only character who probably won't live is that new female Inquisitor, Riva, I believe is her name, or I heard that somewhere. Maybe that's completely wrong. But this show has zero stakes. Now, I was having this discussion with somebody else a while ago when the trailer came out. A good movie or a show doesn't need to have death as the stakes to be a good show. But what this show needs to do is have a purpose somewhere else other than just to, because we're going to be watching Obi-Wan's journey for the journey, not the destination, because we know where the destination is. He's going to end up back on Tatooine somehow. He's going to, die at the hands of Darth Vader later on. But we need to see that this show justifies itself in some capacity, because otherwise it's just not going to make sense. Why do you make this show other than just to have a random rematch between Vader and Obi-Wan? And I don't want that. I don't want this show just to be a random another rematch between Vader and Obi-Wan that could have been a YouTube video, a cool concept of a YouTube video. This show needs to justify itself, and I think it can. Showing that sort of trauma that Obi-Wan went through after Revenge of the Sith. So. And that's what we get to see. The voiceover of "We lost, the war is done." We gotta hide now, and I think that's awesome. Obviously Ewan McGregor looks fantastic, of course, as Obi-Wan. I love we didn't get to see Vader because we saw a picture of Vader from Entertainment Weekly, I believe, and it's Vader. It doesn't reveal anything. It's Vader. We know what Vader looks like. He's not gonna look any different because it's Vader. But yeah, no, I think the trailer looked great. The Duel of the Fates was just a perfect song, and then the Anakin versus Obi-Wan theme that was playing from Mustafar was also playing in the trailer as well. It was pretty short. Didn't get to show us a lot, but gave us sort of the vibe of these Inquisitors hunting Obi-Wan down, which of course they won't succeed because we know where the show is going, but it's still cool to see nonetheless. And I mean, this trailer it looks like what you'd want to see from an Obi-Wan show. So I am absolutely pumped for that. And those were, I think the second Moon Knight trailer came out as well. We're going to talk about Moon Knight in just a little bit. Actually, we can transition into Moon Knight. I think we'll make that the second segment. I have 3 things I want to talk about for the remainder of the show. Book of Boba Fett. Say that 10 times really fast. You can't. Moon Knight sort of expectations, predictions, and sort of what I want to see from the show. And then we'll talk about the Batman because it's the Batman. We'll talk about the Batman. But I think transitioning in, from Star Wars to Star Wars, I wanted to talk about the Book of Boba Fett and what I thought. So let's talk about the Book of Boba Fett. So I put out a couple polls on the Access Blockbusters YouTube channel, sort of gauging what people thought about the show and what people were thinking. And look, it's it's confusing. I think even if you like the show holistically, or even love the show holistically, I don't think you can deny that this show is confusing. It is just confusing, to say the least. Because you have these first 4 episodes that are consistent, at least, about Boba Fett, and I didn't love them, to be fair. And then you have episodes 5 and 6, which are not from the show at all. And then you have episode 7 that attempts to tie some of it together. And I'm confused. I was thinking about what Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau were thinking, when they came up with the concept of this show and sort of planned it out. My guess is that they really were just thinking this was sort of a little chapter, like it's a book of Boba Fett in the overall story of The Mandalorian. But I would have appreciated this more sort of if it came, like at the beginning of Mandalorian season 3 with the addition of the Book of Boba Fett, so like Mandalorian season 3 is 4 extra episodes or 5 extra episodes longer than the other 2 seasons. So like 15 episodes or so. And the first 4 are, this with the special Book of Boba Fett, and he becomes important because Mandalorian comes back to Tatooine and helps him out. I think that makes a lot more sense than just having a show called The Book of Boba Fett, and then having 2 Mandalorian episodes in the middle. The first 4 episodes I thought were okay, varying degrees of okay. I don't even think I made it through the 3rd episode. I watched the 3rd episode late at night, obviously when it came out, and I was very tired. But I wanted a commitment, right? And I think the 3rd episode was the one with the bikers that he recruits, the Power Ranger kids, and I think I fell asleep at the end of it, to be honest. And I don't think I missed anything either. The first couple episodes were interesting to kind of see Boba Fett going through with the Tusken Raiders and stuff, but it didn't pay off at the end. Like, I would have thought maybe a Tusken Raider army comes out at the end to help him. The only thing that got paid off at the end really was the Rancor, which, fine. It was kind of cool to see him, on a Rancor, Boba Fett riding a Rancor again. But yeah, even just from the beginning of the show, it kind of felt like something was off. And I actually rewatched the scenes of Boba Fett from Mandalorian season 2. And he is just a different character. And it's stunning because it's the same director, Robert Rodriguez, who's doing Book of Boba Fett, who did that episode of Mandalorian that I love because that warrior Boba Fett who's using the gaffy stick and just no mercy Boba Fett. And now he's just some guy wearing the armor whose name is Boba Fett. He is not Boba Fett. And that's disappointing. It's disappointing. But then, we hear the Mandalorian theme at the end of episode 4, and you kind of think, oh, he's going to come in for an episode and kind of leave, guest starring. Remember when guest stars were a thing in the sitcoms and stuff like that. Anyways, when Brad Pitt shows up on Friends, that kind of thing, I was like, yeah, it's going to be a fun episode. And I turn it on, watching it with a friend, and it isn't just a fun episode, it's a Mandalorian episode. And it's a fantastic, well, I should say, in my opinion at least, the first half is a fantastic Mandalorian episode, because that episode, Return of the Mandalorian, reminded me of everything I loved and hated about the Mandalorian. I loved the first half, the mythology of the Darksaber, Mandalorian cutting somebody in half and just, going, I can bring you in warm or I can bring you in cold. And with the female Mandalorian, the armorer, and Paz Vizsla, I believe, like that was just awesome. And then you bring in, what's her name, Pelimoto, and I've heard people say that they don't care or they like her. Not her, just like her and her droids and that kind of whole vibe. I'm not trying to say anything bad about the actress or anything. Amy Sedaris, I believe. I hate that, that whole aspect of the Mandalorian. Tatooine, that Tatooine aspect of it all. It reminds me of the prequels and the bad parts of the prequels, not the stuff that I like about the prequels. And man, and I know a lot of people love the Naboo N1 Starfighter. I think it's cool. I just think it's not my favorite ship. By the way, I know they're calling it a Fire Spray now, Slave One or whatever it's called, is my favorite ship in Star Wars, and I'm really sad we didn't get to see a lot more of it until like episode 6 or something, or episode 4 or 5 or 6, 7. I don't remember. They all blend together now at this point, but yeah, I think it was episode 4. We got to see Slave One. That was really cool. But yeah, episode 5 was really hit or miss for me. I was like, okay. The best parts of the Mandalorian and the worst parts of the Mandalorian. Episode 6 comes around, and I'm like, this is crazy, because that was a crazy episode of some hybrid of the Mandalorian and Ahsoka and Luke Skywalker. Who, yeah, I didn't love I didn't hate the episode season 2 CGI Luke, but I didn't love it either. I don't feel any, I think it's better, obviously, but I don't care really. Like I say, visuals are never really going to make or break a movie or a show. I watched Spider-Man No Way Home the other day. I think there are actually some really obvious green screen moments in certain places, like in the mirror dimension. I think it's really obvious, actually, that Doctor Strange is just walking along a green screen. Anyways, I'll let aside. But yeah, no, I was like, I don't, this isn't, this is fine, but it doesn't bother me that much. But you get all of this, Grogu training stuff, and you get Ahsoka, and you get Mando, and you get R2-D2, and you're just like, this is a great show. It's not the Book of Boba Fett, but it's a great show. And then episode 6 ends with Cad Bane, and you're like, oh, this is a great Boba Fett show. And so you're kind of going into the finale like, yeah, like, what's going on here? Like, what are we going to get in the finale? And the way that I would put the finale is that it's a good finale for a different show. I think Cad Bane is the perfect villain to have in the Book of Boba Fett. I don't think that he's the perfect villain to have in this Book of Boba Fett, because he was in one episode and like 5 seconds of another one. If you build him up to have all this history and backstory with Boba Fett, in this show, because I know he has Clone Wars backstory, and then you kill him off, I think I'm a little more okay with that. To kill him off like this just feels disrespectful. I know Dave Filoni has his finger on the pulse of Star Wars pretty well, but that just didn't feel like it was it. I feel like in that instance, it was just kind of like, that was a misstep. I know all the backstory, but you didn't even talk about that much of the backstory. Like, you had a couple lines from Cad Bane. He was like, I remember you as a warrior, something like that. And that was it. And that, Look, I think this show just kind of reminded me that I like The Mandalorian a lot more than the Book of Boba Fett. I liked the Boba Fett from The Mandalorian more than I liked the Boba Fett from the Book of Boba Fett. And it also actually kind of reminded me I didn't like a lot of parts of The Mandalorian. I love it. I like it overall. But if you've been watching the channel, and I reviewed every single episode from season 2, I'm not the biggest fan of The Mandalorian. I think it's like a B tier show for me. It has S tier and A tier elements, obviously, but it's sort of it's there. I'm very excited for a show like Obi-Wan that hopefully doesn't have much filler. Maybe even Andor that doesn't have much filler. Ahsoka, I'm hoping. But Mandalorian, the vibe, the Star Wars-esque nature of it, it's all great. So yeah, I mean, Boba Fett was a swing and a miss. I don't even think it was that much of a swing because they eventually were just like, let's just make Mandalorian again. And it kind of just came and went. It's a show where you should just probably watch episodes 4 and 5 and then just be done with it. Or sorry, 5 and 6 and just be done with it. So there's that. And now though, the next show coming after the Book of Boba Fett, we got a 3-month little hiatus. Is well, not 3 months, like more like 1.5 months, because it premiered over Christmas. Anyways, but the next show coming after the Book of Boba Fett is Moon Knight. I personally love the Moon Knight trailer that came out recently. I rewatched it recently. It is fantastic. But yeah, I'm just so excited. The first 4 episodes screened for critics. And they said, most of them said this is one of the most interesting and new MCU shows. Now, they say that with a lot of the MCU shows, and obviously they don't get to see the finale. And the finale has been really where the MCU shows have fallen flat, really. It just consistently across the board. WandaVision finale, with some great moments. Falcon and Winter Soldier finale, with some okay to good moments. Loki finale, I hated. But didn't love it either. What If finale was, What If, but I didn't like What If overall, so I like the finale. So what does that say about that show? Hawkeye finale, okay, sure. So it's no secret that I'm really hoping that a Moon Knight sticks to landing. But aside from that, what am I looking forward to for Moon Knight? I've tried to stay away from all the clips and all the additional TV spots, so I always do. So I don't know that much about Moon Knight other than what's in the trailers. Obviously, I know about Mark Spector and Stephen Grant and all that sort of stuff. What am I expecting? What am I hoping for Moon Knight? I'm hoping for a show that can fit into the MCU, but can also stand on its own. I think Eternals is a movie that can stand on its own, but isn't really, and again, Kevin Feige will figure it out later, but doesn't really fit into the MCU as we know it right now. Shang-Chi is a movie that can fit into the MCU and stand on its own. Although it leans more heavily into with the whole Trevor Slattery thing, so whatever. But yeah, I especially with a show like Moon Knight, I'm hoping that this is a show that just really is a good show. I think we've had some decent show. I think WandaVision has been a really good show. I think Falcon and the Winter Soldier is a fine MCU show. I think Loki is the same. I think Hawkeye is the same. But we really haven't gotten just a good standalone show. Do you know what I mean? And I'm really hoping that that's what Moon Knight is. So that's number 1. Number 2 is, and I have all the confidence in the world about this after hearing the reviews, just a fantastic Oscar Isaac performance, an Oscar Isaac vehicle. I think Elizabeth Olsen took hold of the opportunity she was given and gave a fantastic performance, and she has just elevated herself. Anthony Mackie, I think, was fine. I think Tom Hiddleston has always been, really good. I think Jeremy Renner was pretty good, but I want Oscar Isaac to just really assert himself in the role and just become Moon Knight. I think that would just be, really fun to watch. Third thing is a decent villain. The MCU shows have fallen under the MCU movie syndrome, at least Phase 1, Phase 2 MCU movie syndrome, of having pretty bad villains, let's be honest. Agatha Harkness was not a good villain. Not a great villain. Carly Morgenthau was a terrible villain, in my opinion. He Who Remains, sure, fine. I don't like him. The TVA in general, pretty interesting, but yeah. Kingpin was barely in the show. Tracksuit Mafia, whatever. So I think having the villain be revealed early on, unlike some of the other shows, of being Arthur Harrow, Ethan Hawke, is going to be really interesting, and is going to sort of play into the show itself. And I'm really excited about that. Number 4 is dig into the supernatural, dig into the weird, dig into the psychological thriller aspects of the show. This is your chance to be something different, obviously. And I applaud the MCU shows for the most part for being very different. WandaVision being a sitcom / sort of a thriller as well. Falcon and Winter Soldier being action, Loki being time heisty sci-fi, Hawkeye being a Christmas buddy cop show. This looks like a psychological thriller through and through. Miss Marvel looks like a fun teen coming of age show. She-Hulk looks like a satire. Like I think that's what's really good about the Disney Plus MCU shows, and I think that Moon Knight will do the same. Yeah, I mean those are basically all of my. Also, actually, well, I should say number 5, gritty action. We saw it in the trailer. Daredevil-esque action where he's sort of Batman-esque action where he's beating up that person in front of the mirror, I think. And hopefully we get more of that. I saw some reviews saying we don't get as much of that in the first 4 episodes, which is a little disappointing. But we'll see about that. So that's really what I'm hoping for a show like Moon Knight. Now with the remaining time, and I want to make this a little bit of a shorter episode, so I won't, if warranted, if people want to hear my extended thoughts on the Batman, I'll make a separate video at certain points, at some point. But over the next 10 minutes or so, I just wanted to talk about the Batman, the movie, the Batman. This is going to be full spoilers, so if you haven't seen the Batman, click off. And I'm not going to be going beat by beat. I'm just going to be talking about my spoiler thoughts for the next 5 to 10 minutes or so. What did I think about the Batman? I think the more I think about it, the more I like it. I've only seen it once, and I plan on seeing it again probably this week. But I think it's a great Batman movie. I don't know if I think it's a good movie, a really good movie. I think it's a great Batman movie. I also think it's about half an hour too long. And I think even if you love this movie, I think that's something that you can't deny. That certain elements felt like they were dragged on a little too far. And we'll kind of get into that. But like for example, I think at a certain point in the movie, we'll talk about the climax later, but in the middle of the movie, I actually forgot that the Riddler was there because the movie shifted focus heavily onto Carmine Falcone or Falcone or whatever. Falcone they call it in the movie. And I think that's fine, but I think that the pacing was a little off to where in a 3-hour movie, like they spent about an hour on Carmine Falcone and then they went back to the Riddler, who killed him eventually. And that's fine. Yeah, I actually forgot the Riddler was in the movie for a while. And I don't know if that's a good thing or not. Paul Dano's performance was obviously fantastic. I think that his scene in Arkham with Batman was great. To kind of have him captured, I'm sort of going back and forth on the finale, though, of having him captured and not being in the rest of the movie, but also kind of having these like multiple Riddler-esque people kind of showing the power that his words have, the power that Gotham's fear has. I think that's a powerful message. I just kind of wish that he had a way of being more present at the end of the film. So there's that. But overall, I thought Paul Dano was a fantastic villain. I think the riddles were really fun. There were certain things I didn't catch even the first time around when they explained them, so I'm excited to go back and knowing kind of what's coming up to be able to dissect this film. But going back to the villains, I think that, I mean, on an aside, I think that Oswald Cobblepot, that's another tongue twister, played brilliantly by Colin Farrell, was used, I think, just about the right amount, but also like teetering on the edge of what is he like being in the film a little too much to be like what's the point of him being in the film other than just to introduce him for his own spin-off show. But the other thing that really kind of bugged me a little bit about the show, the movie, I keep saying show, we've been talking about shows for the episode, but is really Carmine Falcone's relationship with Catwoman. Because look, I respect that they were trying to add this extra layer. I feel like that's one storyline that should have been cut out, though, entirely, is Catwoman's relationship with Carmine Falcone being her father. I think it's enough that Bruce Wayne has his own tragedy and trauma with Carmine Falcone, who, might, I forget, did he call the hit on Bruce's parents? Anyways, but that whole trauma of that just being with Batman, I think is so much more interesting than whatever they did with Catwoman. I think Zoe Kravitz did a great job as Catwoman. I just don't think her character was super necessary at times, and it was only necessary because her father was Carmine Falcone, and even then it was like, but that didn't even need to be in the movie. I don't know. I liked the dynamic. She didn't feel super necessary to me in the movie. I also don't think that, Penguin was super necessary in the movie. I'm glad that they were there. I think there, like I was saying, there are certain elements of the movie that I go, did that really need to be there? I don't know. But that, honestly, okay. The one other complaint I have about the movie, and then I promise that's basically it. I might think of some nitpicks here and there, but no, that's about it. Is Bruce Wayne, and this isn't really even a negative. This is me just saying that this film didn't focus on Bruce Wayne, didn't choose to, and it is the Batman. That being said, I think that Pattinson's performance as Batman and as this sort of recluse Bruce Wayne was really good. I'd also be interested to see his take on a more philanthropic, billionaire, playboy Bruce Wayne, which this movie didn't need, by the way. This movie did not need. I want to make that clear. But I also just think that maybe in future movies, whether you're dealing with Hush or the Joker, which I guess that's the other thing, it's not a negative. We'll talk about that in just a second. But anyways, yeah, I think that to even more elevate the performance of Bruce Wayne, this haunted sort of figure, to emerge from the shadows, is sort of trying to put on a public face now that he understands Gotham City needs hope, would be really interesting. I guess the very last thing that I will say for now about negatives is that that Joker scene, a lot of people keep saying that's the one thing I wish they didn't put in the movie. I'm fine with that being in the movie. I just wish it was in the credit scene. It was a credit scene, I don't understand why it wasn't a credit scene. It perfectly fit as a credit scene. So anyways, all that aside, what I loved about this movie was the sound design. And I know that's a weird thing to start off with, but Batman's footsteps in this movie were everything. Just hearing him come out of the shadows and creep forward and stalk forward and just stand there. Brilliant. The car chase had some of the best sound design of a car chase I've seen in a long time, if ever, honestly. And just the tactile feel of Batman is something that we didn't get with Ben Affleck, and dare I say we didn't get that much with Christian Bale. Christian Bale's Batsuit kind of feels a little bit more not lightweight, but a little lighter than the Robert Pattinson suit. Which again, both serve their purposes in their franchises and their films. But Batman, this is my favorite Batman suit, I think, easily. It's fantastic. I love the supporting actors, Paul Dano, like I said, Jeffrey Wright as Gordon. I think Alfred Serkis, Andy Serkis does a good job as Alfred. I think obviously Zoe Kravitz did a great job. Colin Farrell did a good job. Am I forgetting somebody? I mean, John Turturro did a good job as Carmine Falcone. Performances were great. The lighting, the visuals, stunning. In a dark way. Like, it's not stunning in the poppy, I don't know, Guardians of the Galaxy kind of visual way, or the Eternals kind of way where you're on landscapes and you're in Babylon and you're whatever. This was obviously Gotham, and people have said this. I'm not going to rehash too many things, but just to say that Gotham City itself was beautiful in a dark, kind of twisted way, in a fallen way. And I love that about the movie. I also think it's interesting the parallels between Paul Dano's Riddler being an orphan and Bruce Wayne's Batman being an orphan. I think that was a cool connection there that they made. Because again, I think that even if you have a psychopath serial killer, you gotta. I mean, it's fine enough to have just a serial killer, but I love villains with motivations. I love villains who are thinking, have reasons for acting the way that they do, other than just randomly chaotic. It works in terms of like the Joker, but I think the Riddler with Project Renewal, feeling left out of society was just a great touch. But what I loved most about this film is that Batman has an arc. And I know he has arcs in the Dark Knight trilogy, kind of going from this sort of hurt, vengeful character in Batman Begins to the hero of Gotham City in its own way. In the Dark Knight, sort of going from like hero of the city to being selfless and making himself sort of the face of the evil that went on with Harvey Dent and stuff. Dark Knight Rises maybe a little less so. He makes a sacrifice at the end of the movie. But this movie, what it was saying about Batman, I thought was so impressive. I thought it was so impressive because the beginning of the movie, I'm vengeance, comes back later in the movie in a perfect scene where he sees this Riddler criminal say, I'm vengeance, and he realizes the look on Pattinson's face is like, oh, I did that. I inspired that. Oh no, like that was me. And I think that's brilliant. I think that is absolutely brilliant that they did that. And I just to go from that vengeance to then hope at the end in a very organic, real way is really one of the strengths of this movie. I think it is really one of the things that this movie does exceptionally well. Is show a character progression of Batman to where you're excited to see where this new Batman is going to go in the future. I think Pattinson has room to even improve upon a great performance already. I think Matt Reeves has things to improve upon. I get that 3 hours movies don't have to be short or long, or they can be whatever they want. I just think that this particular movie, unlike a Dune, unlike a Endgame, just didn't really. Could have been at least 15 minutes shorter, if not half an hour. But no, this movie is fantastic, and I can't wait to see it again. Hopefully sometime soon. So those were my thoughts on the Batman. Those were my thoughts on Book of Boba Fett. I know I didn't go as in depth as I could have. I would love to in the future even more. I'm sure I will in the comments with you guys as well. And that was today's episode of the Access Blockbusters pod. The full episode will hopefully go up Tuesday, if not Wednesday, with the clips following. So if you just want to hear my thoughts on the Batman, if you just want to hear my thoughts on Book of Boba Fett or the Miss Marvel trailer, those clips will be coming out over the next coming days and weeks. But I would, of course, greatly prefer if you listen to the whole episode of the Access Blockbusters pod in its entirety. Which I understand if you can't, because you can't stand my voice for 50 minutes, so that's totally fine. But yeah, guys, that'll be it for me. Please enjoy the upcoming videos. I think I have some really interesting ones coming out over the next couple months, every couple weeks. Hopefully we'll be able to do another check-in podcast, and I'll kind of detail what I'm thinking about the Access Blockbusters channel. Hoping to make a sequel to ranking literally every single MCU character. Hoping to make Beginner's Guide of the MCU part 3, making it a yearly thing with each passing year. Hoping to make some more awesome content for you guys and keep the podcast alive. And yeah, that'll be it for me, guys. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for sticking around. Share your thoughts in the comments, like the video on YouTube, or rate it on Apple Podcasts, wherever you would prefer. And I'll see you guys in the next episode. Take care, guys.